President Trump just this hour commuting the sentence of former Republican Congressman George Santos, who is currently serving a 7-year prison sentence for aggravated identity theft and wire fraud charges. Let's get straight to CNN's Kristen Holmes at the White House. Kristen, a bit of a Friday night news dump, I guess we could describe it, from President Trump. Did he say why he chose to do this?
Well, it seems pretty unexpected, actually, because President Trump has been lobbied on this by both Santos as well as other members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene for some time, and he has always evaded answering the question of whether or not he would pardon or commute a sentence for George Santos. It does appear, looking at George Santos' Twitter, that he wrote an open letter from prison recently as this week. But if you're asking President Trump why he did it, he is linking this to Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut and saying that Blumenthal lied but never had to go to jail. And of course, Santos lied but did have to go to jail. And then really essentially saying that because Santos is a Republican, that maybe he should have his sentence commuted. This is also not the first of these former Republican politicians that he has pardoned or commuted their sentence. He did so for Representative Michael Grimm. He did so for a Connecticut governor, among others, all Republican, failed Republican politicians who had been convicted of crimes. When it comes to himself, as we know, he had been convicted of 7 years to a 7-year sentence. This says, according to Donald Trump, that as soon as he signs this pen, he is no longer going to be in any, it says, releasing George Santos from prison immediately. That's what happens as soon as he signs this commutation, of course. I'm sure there's a lot that has to happen in between then. But this is a lengthy screed here about Blumenthal. I will note, it was just earlier this month, maybe 2 weeks ago, that President Trump said he was going to look into Blumenthal. He was going to do some kind of investigation into him because he had clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi. It's something he has brought up a lot. Unclear whether or not this actually has anything to do with Blumenthal, but this is how President Trump is translating this. We'll wait to see reaction from Santos and other lawmakers who, of course, expelled him from the House of Representatives because he was found guilty of fraud, as well as stealing other identities, posing as donors to make donations, among other things. So we'll wait and see what the reaction is to this.
Yeah, he didn't have many fans, we should note, in the Republican Party. So
Yeah.
This is quite interesting. Kristen Holmes of the White House for us. Thank you so much. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. So, Congressman, breaking news Friday evening, your reaction to President Trump commuting George Santos' sentence.
Thank you, Bianna, for your question. My first reaction is, wow, the president really wants to distract from the Republican shutdown and the Epstein files. Let me remind the American people what disgraced former Congressman George Santos was convicted of, among crimes including identity theft, obtaining unemployment benefits through fraud, charging credit cards without authorization. He was sentenced to 87 months in prison. And now Donald Trump's action is thrusting him into the limelight and making him again the face of the Republican Party. And I am more than happy to talk about this commutation and what this action means, because it's really the embodiment now of what the Republican Party stands for.
How are you expecting some of your Republican colleagues to respond to this? Because as we noted, there wasn't much love lost within his own party as well.
Well, as you had mentioned early on, some of the members of the Republican Party pushed for George Santos to get a commutation. I imagine many of them will be silent because they are very afraid of saying anything that might possibly offend the president. And so we're going to see a whole bunch of silence. That would be my guess.
Look, this is a guy who, as you said, identity theft, wire fraud, a professional grifter. If you voted for Donald Trump because you thought he was going to drain the swamp, because you believed him when he said he wanted to level the playing field for everyday Americans, like today is another example of why you should be disappointed. He just seems to go out of his way time and time again to show that he will do whatever it takes to support those who support him and punish those who oppose him. I wish I could say I'm surprised by this. I'm not, but it's yet another example of him going against exactly what he said he was going to be as president.
So, TW, do you think George Santos was deserving of this commutation? He wasn't exactly the most beloved figure in America, much less Congress.
Maybe not beloved, depending on what circle you ran in. I thought his cameos were very funny. Look, I don't know the exact petition put forward to the president. Obviously, George Santos was convicted of a number of crimes, and if the president thought, the DOJ thought that it was an overreach or it was targeted at him, it's within the president's right to commute a sentence. That authority lies with the president alone and his judgment alone.